Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, helping higher education marketing leaders share knowledge about learning, strategies, and tactics that are relevant today. See what you can learn today by listening to one of our episodes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, hosted by Concept 3D. On this podcast, we discuss higher ed marketing topics on creating and capturing demand. So before we jump in, we do have a quick message from our sponsor, Concept 3D. Concept 3D's purpose is to foster connections through technology, elevating the way businesses connect with their community by leveraging the power of events and location. If your school needs an updated interactive map, virtual tour, or centralized events calendar, please reach out to concept3d.com. Okay, so my name is Shiro, and I will be your host today for the podcast. And today I'm very, very excited to introduce our guest speaker. She is an award-winning content strategist and marketer with a talent for crafting compelling digital narratives. She's currently serving as the managing assistant director for digital content strategy at Kean University. Please welcome Danielle Ford.
Hi, Shiro. Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
It's great to have you as well. And I love to ask this icebreaker before we get into the details here, but what do you love about higher ed?
Well, I can honestly say I love so many things about higher ed, having worked in higher ed for 12 years. And I've worked in a range of industries, right? I kind of started my career in medical technology, worked briefly in pharma, and I can only say that the higher ed culture is transformatively different than what I've experienced in corporate. And in many ways, right? I think one thing I love about higher ed is the sense of community. You don't always get that in a corporate environment. A corporate environment tends to be incredibly competitive. And sometimes that spirit of competition, rather than being productive, it can be really counterproductive. But I think community in higher ed is tangible and real, and I've experienced it. I think that in higher ed, you will find mentors, whether it's in administration or in the faculty, because mentoring is a core part of our mission. I also think that there's a sense of being vested kind of in institutional success and in student success. So I will say at Kean, we're an incredibly diverse community. A significant portion, if not the majority of our students are first generation. So we're connecting students with viable pathways to success. And viable opportunities, part of that is not emerging from college massively indebted, right? That's what makes it viable. Affordability. So Kean's also the most affordable institution of higher education in the state. So I would say that there's a sense of shared mission among my colleagues, and everyone's committed to not only preserving an institutional culture that's inclusive, but also with high standards of academic excellence and equity, and is also committed to research and also to student success first and foremost.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. I want to go to school there too now.
Enroll at Kean.
You got me sold. If I was only maybe 12 years ago, that was great. And in our last conversation and also given your role, we talked a lot about website and digital content strategy. Can you tell me a little bit more about what your role looks like? I don't really get to talk to a lot of digital content strategists in higher ed. I think it's somewhat of a newer title, so I'm really interested to hear, what are your responsibilities, your KPIs, what outcomes are you looking for? I know we could go on forever, but just a quick synopsis would be great.
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about my day-to-day and some ongoing projects. So I manage Kean.edu, and that's the university's digital front door. We're one of Kean's primary marketing engines. And
Wow.
In my department, the Office of University Relations, we're the university's foremost storytellers. And storytelling, the art of crafting compelling brand narratives, is something I'm passionate about. A storytelling approach is really different from an e-commerce approach in that it's rooted in authenticity and it's people-centric. Right, so we're constantly telling Kean stories, highlighting on those on the website, and then also I'm contributing to our institutional narrative by creating, concise marketing messages and layouts that are visually compelling. So at Kean, our tagline is "Cougars Climb Higher," and I frequently have to feature variations on that theme at Kean.edu. We're constantly exploring what Kean climbing higher means, right? So it's nuanced and compelling. And then I think also we're telling stories of overcoming adversity, because that's the classic American narrative, right? The Horatio Alger story, overcoming adversity. But amongst our community, you'll find that those stories are so varied and diverse. And it's great to really highlight them on Kean.edu. We recently were featured on the college tour, and you saw a broad cross-section of our students from all walks of life talking about their different challenges, kind of impediments to climbing higher, but also the support that they received in Kean, and how that benefited them and how that helped them to achieve their goals. Right now, I'm working on major projects focused on sustainability and research. So prospective students are interested in the kind of research opportunities, facilities, and mentors available to them. They also want an institution that aligns with their values. So our commitment to sustainability is reflected in a multitude of diverse initiatives, ranging from academic programs and research projects to composting and recycling, charging stations, aquaponic projects for rehabilitating wetlands, botanical, medicinal drug research. The list goes on. So the breadth of those initiatives at Kean, it shows what a forward-thinking institution it is with a commitment to the environment. And these projects are currently in progress, and I'm excited about telling those stories on the web, representing them with compelling visuals and imagery. Also, thinking towards scope, thinking towards navigability and ease of use. When I work on web, I'm always thinking about user experience and SEO. So I want to make sure that users are readily able to locate and access our content, and that we're performing well in terms of organic search. But also, I want to think about, what is the user experience like? How hard is it to find and locate pertinent information? What are the pain points that those users are experiencing? Is it intuitive or is it counterintuitive? So often with design, we'll see designers choosing UX anti-patterns that are kind of the opposite of the way your eye moves through a layout or a page, that are making things.
Could you go into the UX anti-patterns? That's a new one for me.
Yeah, so when it comes to UX, right, there are a lot of style conventions. And some people are constantly trying to reinvent the wheel. But style conventions exist because they're effective, right? It's kind of a visual lexicon that's established in design, right? And I'm not a graphic designer, but as a digital content strategist, I am thinking about design best practices. Things like use of white space, things like, like navigability and ease of use. Best practices in these spaces. So a UX anti-pattern would be something that was kind of creating a pain point where there should be, this really streamlined functionality. So you never want to do that. You never want to design in a way that's counterintuitive or that kind of goes against. I'll give you an example. Like on your mobile device, think about how most users scroll, right? You scroll up. Yeah, you scroll up and down. But with a lot of our peer institutions, we're seeing a lot of scrolls where you're navigating left to right. Now that's a UX anti-pattern. That's something you'd only see if you were going through like your photo library, right? You'd never see it on a website. So things like that are things to avoid. It might seem like an innovation, but it's really because it's kind of, for the user, it can be a little disorienting or even an annoyance.
Right. Got it. And a simple stage of that would be like, hey, let's make your website mobile friendly. Like, let's not have pages that you have to scroll left and right or zoom in and out. Would that be an example?
We're even seeing examples on this on designs that claim to be mobile first. So,
really? Okay.
Yeah, oddly enough. So yes, Kean.edu is fully responsive, but even on responsive sites, you do see these UX anti-patterns in the name of innovation. But we do want to think about those style conventions that are more familiar to the user, and also accessibility, right? So as a public institution of higher education, we're federally mandated to comply with guidelines for accessibility. And that's part of our mission, making Kean.edu fully accessible to users with disabilities. So it is compatible with screen readers and other assistive technologies.
Amazing. And is that something that you've been working on in the last 12 years you've been with Kean, or with accessibility of your website?
Yeah, I mean, at launch, Kean.edu was built to AA standards of accessibility, and maintaining that standard is an institutional priority.
Okay. And earlier you're talking about how you're working on the project around sustainability. From a web perspective, like what does it mean like to tell the story through the web? Are you placing it in and making it more searchable on your website? Are you bringing snippets of it to the homepage, like in creating pathways where you can learn more about how Kean is contributing to sustainability?
Yeah, I'm working closely with the President's Sustainability Task Force at Kean. on this initiative, right? Because we have a range of sustainability initiatives, not all of which currently have a web presence. So building that presence out and aligning it with our overall research focus is an area of priority.
Amazing. Yeah, I remember in the last call you mentioned the word footprint. Right now, like there's literally no footprint for a lot of the projects that the school is already involved in, and so like that's kind of like the basic start, right? That you have to have a presence online for that information.
Yeah, I'd say there's definitely a footprint, but there's a difference between something that's like a footprint and something that's robust and comprehensive, right? And also, so that involves a lot of things: consolidating information, creating something that's. So for research, I think in terms of the scope of our research initiatives, looking at what a lot of our peer institutions are doing, ultimately our research site will comprise not only grant-funded research projects, but also labs, centers, institutes, our facilities. Students are interested in what kind of research mentors they'll be able to work with, what kind of undergraduate research opportunities exist, what kind of funding is available to them. We have an annual celebration of both student and faculty research at Kean called Research Days. That's a hybrid experience that our students can participate in. So all those initiatives are going to have a strong presence on Kean.edu in the future, just to convey the scope of our research activities in a really compelling way, because Kean is New Jersey's first urban research institution, and we're still kind of defining, what that means to be an urban research institution. But in a lot of ways, it means being a leader in terms of urban ecology and the issues that urban communities are facing.
Got it. Thanks for explaining that to me. No, it makes sense. Going back to your original point, about kind of your role in your day-to-day and your emphasis on storytelling, I was curious, what does storytelling on a higher education website look like for an institution, and why is it important?
Yeah, at Kean, I'll say we have a phenomenal team of writers, right? And we feature their content in a variety of ways. One of the ways is kind of leveraging subject matter expertise. At a university, subject matter expertise is one of your key assets. You can't market academic program pages without that subject matter expertise.
Right.
So our faculty are actively involved, especially departmental leadership, in the content creation process. And they're articulating what are the desired learning outcomes for their programs? What careers do their students pursue after graduation? What cohorts kind of students should pursue these pathways? So they're helping us to articulate that on a daily basis. Also, in terms of storytelling on Kean.edu, I'd say that we have an award-winning video content team. I'm featuring their content in a variety of ways. Creating concise brand messages designed to resonate with a broad spectrum of users and with our core audiences. So we're looking to engage prospective students. We're looking to retain current students. We're looking to reach out to parents and the community. At Kean, we definitely consider it part of our mission to be to give back in a meaningful way to our local community. Kean's president, Lamont Repillette, recently instituted an annual free jazz festival. And he says it's not a fundraiser, it's a fundraiser. But just part of, that commission, that mission and commitment to community engagement is reflected in a variety of ways. And also, so we're conveying to the community that we're open and accessible, that we're a resource, whether it's for adult education or childcare, or our art galleries and theaters are open to the public, and we always want them to visit.
Amazing. So it looks like, what I'm hearing is the website for Kean is not really just a place for prospective students or current students to go. It's it has several pillars of importance in terms of who the audience is, right? You mentioned community engagement just now as well.
Yes, definitely. I think every higher ed website is engaging diverse audiences and core constituencies. So, of course, as a marketing engine, our website is primarily recruitment focused. But for current students, I often say that with our past redesigns, one of our goals was to shift paradigm shift, changing Kean from a filing cabinet to a marketing engine, the website.
Right.
And so part of what that means is that most of the content on Kean.edu is not administrative, even though there's a place for that content. So for current students, we're thinking about their experience. We're thinking about things like registration and how can we streamline that and make what they need as accessible as possible so that they're getting the advisement resources that they need. But also focusing on, like prospective students and attracting that core audience and recruitment.
That's amazing. And I think you mentioned since the couple redesigns that you've been involved with and managed, you've been able to drive a lot more campus visits through the website when traditionally the website, like you said, was more of a filing cabinet and wasn't the marketing engine. Is that right?
Yeah, I think the goal of every redesign, right, is establishing clear calls to action and an enrollment funnel, right? So as part of the redesign process, I've worked on several redesigns for Kean.edu. I oversaw a full redesign of Kean.edu in 2010, contributed to a 2018 redesign as a content writer and content creator, and contributed to our 2022 intranet launch as a project manager. So, like that process has involved to begin with, an exhaustive amount of market research, right? You want to do an extensive and comprehensive survey of your competitors and what they're doing so that you can identify gaps in the market, so that you can identify opportunities. You also want to crowdsource your campus culture. There are a lot of ways to do that. One way to do that is through consensus building activities. I'm fond of a method that our advertising agency introduced us to. It's called KJ sessions. So named after Japanese ethnographer Shiro Kawakita, the KJ method for affinity mapping is a way to ensure that the loudest voice in the room doesn't dominate the conversation around marketing. And so basically, it's a method that's inherently democratic, and it's a great way to engage every team member. And so it's basically sticky notes on a wall. But what you're doing is you're aggregating ideas, and you're identifying potential solutions. And you're also identifying kind of common pain points. So it's like, what is your least favorite thing about the website? Certain common reoccurring themes are going to arise. And those themes are the things you want to pay attention to, because if a majority of your internal users are saying the same thing, it's like, how can this be addressed? What solution doesn't currently exist that you most want to see? Those are other things that you want to be really attentive to. And I would say that when it comes to affinity mapping and consensus building, you're also thinking about your brand messages and what brand messages are authentic to you and resonate with your community. I always say that, market realities, don't market fictions. So you have to identify, what are those core institutional values? What is true? Because what is true is what will ultimately be compelling. So at Kean, I would say, we're one of the most diverse institutions of higher education in the country. That is a fact about us and our community. That is really compelling both for prospective students and for their families, because, a lot of students are looking for not only a diverse, but also an inclusive environment, which we offer. Kean is a research institution, and research is a institutional priority and a core institutional value. It's a supportive community. So these are the kind of things that, it's a supportive community where students will find lifelong mentors. So these are the kind of things that we include in our marketing and that resonate with our audiences because they're grounded in truth.
I love it. Yeah, don't try to be who you're not, right? Be real with yourself, real with your messaging. I'm curious with the KJ method that you examined or you mentioned earlier. Was that something you said internal committee, right, as well? But did you also talk to students as well? Like, hey, where do you think our website what was your approach with talking to students as well? Because they're the ones using the website.
We use the same affinity mapping approach, and
really?
We got very different answers because it's a very different audience, of course.
Right.
But that student perspective is always incredibly valuable. And so in our market research, I've been directly, participating in some of our focus groups with current students. Of course, we've also conducted focus groups with prospective students, with high school sophomores and juniors, and I know those have been a really helpful data source.
That's amazing. No, I love that. And what have some of the results been, over the last couple of years since you've been, working, whether it's collaborating or managing some of the website redesigns and website initiatives? think you mentioned something about campus visits and the recruitment team before.
Yeah, a success isn't a success unless it's quantifiable, right? So our storytelling approach to
Thank you.
content strategy and web design has proven to be impactful. In 2021, 43% of open house attendees were referred by Kean.edu, compared
Wow.
to 11% in 2019. So we've seen a lot of growth and tangible impact. We've also been nationally recognized by an industry leader for our SEO efforts. So there's a strong correlation, I would say, between our current record enrollment and these successes on the digital front.
That's amazing. And I know we kind of glossed over this already, but if you're just going through a redesign, what are some patterns you've noticed if you've done 3 and now potentially 4 of these redesigns? What are some patterns you've noticed that you should really look out for that you've maybe missed on and learned as you've done more of these web designs?
Yeah, I would say to pay attention to the numbers. Look for traffic spikes. Usually, a redesign is going to contribute to a significant increase in overall web traffic.
Right.
But I would also pay attention to data loss. Sometimes with a migration, there is content that is lost in the shuffle, and sometimes that content is valuable. I'd also say to think about governance, because that's as important as content creation. You really want to be wary of outdated information, right? Our website comprises thousands of pages. In terms of scope, it's a beast. So governance is important, especially because policies are constantly being updated. Things
Right.
are constantly changing. That's one of the great things about the web as opposed to paper and PDFs. We've definitely cut down on the glut of PDFs on Kean.edu. People love them, but they're static, right? It's not fluid.
Right.
So I think it's important to kind of get buy-in for your community around content moderation, content creation, and governance, so that, of course, at launch, you're going to launch with a very high level of quality, but maintaining that quality
Could you
over
quickly
time.
describe what governance means to you as well, just as a definition for our audience?
Yeah, I would say that governance means maintaining a standard of quality over time and having policies and internal stakeholders in place that ensure that those standards of quality are maintained. So we work closely with academic affairs. They're kind of the gatekeepers around our academic content, ensuring that as things change internally, as programs and their standards are updated, that is reflected on the web. Also, I'd say that when it comes to content editing and moderation, we have a really broad content editor network of about 100 content editors that I've trained.
Wow.
Who are involved in that content creation and content updating process. So that's really helpful because you want to ensure that your content remains accurate and compelling.
Right.
And also you want some gatekeepers in place who are really knowledgeable about every place where information appears. So we try to avoid redundancies. Avoiding redundancies is key to governance because if
Right.
if information appears in 12 locations, like what are the odds, unless that's documented, that you're going to update that information in all 12 locations? So we try to avoid redundancies to begin with, but also from a governance standpoint, if there's, say, graduation information on like 12 pages, and there's a gatekeeper who knows what those 12 pages are, who knows that this needs to be updated simultaneously in all these locations. So that's kind of part of the governance process.
Thank you so much. Thanks. That outlines it perfectly for me. That's great. And where did you go for all this information in terms of how to build this team of 100 people with the governance process? Are there sources where you go for information or some people you look up to?
Definitely. At Kean, there are definitely people I look up to. When it comes to strategic creativity, our resident expert is Robin Landa. She's written 24 books. I'm a huge fan of Professor Landa, and I definitely, read her work.
Amazing.
Our Karen Smith, who's the head of our department, vice president for university relations, is someone with a really amazing strategic vision, who gives a lot of direction to our departmental initiatives. So, I always defer to Karen and her vision and her expertise. And then when it comes to information resources, I get information from really diverse sources. I like to read, I read the New York Times every day. I like to read Fast Company. I'm interested in, we have a data-driven culture at Kean. I'm interested in data science and leveraging that for innovation. We also have a continuous improvement model around assessment. So assessment at Kean is ongoing and it's very data-driven.
Amazing. Yeah, and I know one metric that's super high level that we didn't really talk about is web traffic, though. But I'm assuming, since 2019, when you shared some of those web or campus visit results, since then, with all your SEO efforts, I'm assuming the traffic number has also gone up quite intensely as well. Is that right?
Our traffic is robust. I can't really share those numbers. It's kind of a trade
All
secret.
Good.
But
Yeah.
I will say, our last redesign did contribute to a significant increase
Amazing.
in overall web traffic.
That's great. That's fantastic. It's good to hear. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I was wondering where our guest listeners could follow up with you to learn more about your work and how to connect with you as well.
Okay, please contact me on LinkedIn. So you can find me on linkedin.com/in/Danielle Denise Ford.
Amazing. And I know you've had some guest speaking opportunities as well in the past as well. And so I don't know if you're looking to also do some more in 2023, but I would definitely encourage all of our audience to keep a close eye and follow her on LinkedIn as well, because I know she's got some important stuff to say.
Oh, thank you, Shiro. I appreciate that. Yeah, I have done some speaking at national conferences. I presented at RNL twice. My last presentation was around narrative, the art of digital content, the art of digital storytelling.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks again for joining us, and thanks to our audience for listening in. And of course, if you need an interactive map, virtual tour solution, or events calendar solution, please reach out to us. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Shiro.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.